reach your impact. Now, all of us have ideas about how we can improve things. And we can improve things both at work and at home, or at work in our work life and our personal life. But research from Wharton says that about almost 70% of people feel more compliant at work than they do in any other situation. I mean, when you feel compliant, that means there's really nothing you can do to change things. So you notice lots of things that should be improved or are going wrong or tolerated that shouldn't be. And after a while, you just feel like, what's the use? So what this is about is how to be much more effective at getting about change. And you can use this for small change or big change. Now, here's the thing I don't want you to think, that this is only for people who are going to make presentations to the CEO or the chief financial officer for some big deal. I want you to think about using this process for even small changes in the way maybe work is distributed or handled, or projects that are not seem to be going very efficiently. I just want you to feel, if you feel a sense of autonomy and control over your work, you'll be a lot happier at work. And to do that, you feel like you have to have impact, that you can really bring about change. So this is why it's important for all of you, no matter what level you're on. So there are three big things we're going to talk to. First is, how do you set a strategic goal? Second is, how do you sell a smart solution? And third, how do you ask for what you need to succeed? So let's get right into it. Now, there are three steps in this process. The first is to establish a strategically aligned goal. Now, why is it that's important is that in research about promotability, what really leads people to believe that you're promotable? One of the things that's very powerful is when you talk about improvements that need to be made in terms of what's strategically important to the company. So even if it's a change that makes your job better, if you can link it to that makes the company do better, that's much more effective. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. The second is to graphically ignite a financial burning platform. Hopefully you've heard about a burning platform. That's like, imagine you're standing on a pole and you're on a little tiny platform on top of the pole, and you're about 20 feet above the ground. And it's really a nice view up there. But then the pole catches on fire, and the only way down is to get off. Well, that's what a burning platform is really all about. So when you create a financial burning platform in a business environment, people really listen. This is Harvard research that said the biggest, most important, or the decisions that are acted on the most are acted on for financial reasons. So that reasoning is very powerful in an organization. We also know that people who use financial arguments to try to get about change are more respected than people who don't. And number three is to present a time-based work plan, which is something you're all familiar with and fairly simple to do. It's when you put these three things together that you become much more impactful. So here's the form, and it's in your download package. And I want you to be able to use this form for anything you're working on. So this is the latest research on effective goal setting in its most simplified form. So you start off with a context for whatever goal. So you always start off with A, you don't just move to B. So the context are facts that matter. So you ask yourself, what's happening versus what should be happening? Now, what's happening right now might be in a work setting, it might be there's a bureaucratic procedure that was installed 10 years ago under completely different circumstances that we're still doing that we don't need to do anymore. So what's happening is we're wasting a lot of time and talent doing stuff that doesn't need to be done. We should have leapt over that and be far more efficient. That could be an example. It also, it could be around the house. Like, what's happening is the garden is going to pot and the grass is getting yellow versus what should be happening. So context setting, no matter what you're trying to do to create change, gives you control of the conversation. B is the goal. So what needs to happen now based on strategic priorities? I call these SWOT-based priorities. Remember, SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to your strategy. So what needs to happen now based on strategic priorities? So if we go back to my bureaucratic example, it's really important to be efficient, flexible, and agile and quick. Therefore, we need to cut out bureaucracy. Now, all of a sudden, your goal to quit doing wasteful work is tied to the strategic goal. Likewise, in the garden, what needs to happen now, we really want to have pride of ownership in the house. When we drive in, up the driveway or into our garage at night, we don't want to be embarrassed about the house. We all love a house where the garden looks great and the grass is green and so forth. It's a source of pride and comfort, which is important to my life happiness. The next is, how will you measure success? Now, of course, what we want to do is combine as many measures as we can. Financial measures are very important if we can do that. But there are other quantitative measures that we can, if we take the status of where things now, like let's say how long it's taking to get a new product to market by using this whole process versus how long it could take if we used a streamlined process. We could still measure the time it takes, and that would be a quantitative goal. A qualitative goal is, how do you discern progress? So in the gardening example, for instance, you might get fertilizer and water and recruit family members to help weed and do all these kinds of things. But at first, there's really not a big change because it takes time for growing things to get green and start to flourish. But the way you could discern progress is to see new green shoots coming out of the ground where you want them to or less weeds where you want them to be. So even though the garden isn't beautiful, you're starting to see progress. So you can discern progress or measure progress. And the best, most persuasive, most powerful ways of getting people to support you is to notice both things so people don't get impatient. So here's an example. This is a real example of a company I worked with recently. And this was all having to do with engagement for their entire company. And what came up in our research is that they were losing a lot of female talent. Women were exiting the company after about 3 to 5 years because not very many women were being promoted into senior management. And that was seen to be a significant talent loss. And the loss of that talent, plus the productivity loss because these people were less engaged, was estimated to be about $15 million a year. That's a big number. That speaks to people. So B, the objective was, we need to create a culture that engages the productive capacity of all our talent. Now see, that's strategic alignment. When you have a goal that is connected to the strategy, it's usually a phrase that nobody can be against. So we need to be more efficient so we can get products to market faster. Who's going to be against that? The next part of that goal is to do this. Our data confirms that we will get more commitment from all employees by training and modeling some specific behaviors that make everybody feel included in building our enterprise. So that's a solution. So you have strategic alignment around the goal and then your proposed solution. And then the next is, well, how we know success? Well, in this case, engagement scores will rise, more women will advance, and more hires will come through referrals, and will increase the number of successful product launches because their evidence was that when women were involved in product launches, they were more successful, probably due to empathy. And D, what we notice, if we start this, we ought to notice right away more collaboration, more women speaking up in meetings, more listening, and a stronger sense of customer advocacy throughout the company. So I'm bringing this up because there's a real use of this. But you can see that in whatever you're trying to design, whatever goal you're trying to achieve, this process really gets your thinking clear, and it makes it easier for people to say yes. Now, most of you, I think, have seen this before if you've been to some of my workshops, because the most powerful, convincing slide, again, in a company, because companies are so financially sensitive. So this is In this company, they were estimating the cost of bias, and both in terms of productivity loss and talent loss. Turned out to be a big number. It's a big company. And the solution investment, they didn't know, but they knew it was going to be a tiny fraction of that much to promote culture change, training and modeling around certain behaviors. But we had to identify the behaviors. So this was part of the presentation. And then this is valuable to you, not just this company. So that's why I thought I'd include it. In the research, what it says is that when cultures foster this behavior, and so this is like leaders, management, and supervisors, but it's also just peers doing these 8 things, people are really engaged. So this kind of is interesting. So when we have a manager or supervisor that listens to us and coaches us, when we have a manager offer me important opportunities and stretch assignments, then I feel this opportunity to grow. When I make a mistake or fail, if the focus of the feedback is about how I can do better and what I need to develop, I don't feel so bad because there's a way out. I'm not just punished. If my supervisor is pushing me for promotion, asking me what I want to do next, if they offer me private encouragement and public recognition, by the way, there's nothing more powerful in a subculture like a team where the leader is doing just that, private encouragement and public recognition, that really bonds the team together. We all like more decision authority. We hate to wait around for decisions to be made where we know probably more about the efficacy of a decision or not. And when we're asked for suggestions and opinions, and when people notice how my work connects to the business strategy and actually says things. Well, those are 8 very specific behaviors. There's no reason why we can't do that. We already know that really good leaders, managers, and just peers do that. And it makes it a great team. So in the example I'm talking about, well, it became the goal to do that. So what we presented was a nifty little simple work plan. And what a work plan looks like is just putting the steps on a calendar. That's all it really takes. So with that, we were off to the races. Now, I'm not telling this story. This isn't a story really about my success because I didn't do this. Actually, I was coaching somebody to do this. And you can coach each other to do this. So here's the application assignment. I want you to think, oh, by the way, if there's nothing you're trying to change right now, that's fine. I just want you to keep this handout and keep it in mind when you feel the urgency to change that you use this. So, but if there is something that you're saying, gosh, I wish we'd quit doing this and start doing that, write it down. What needs to improve or change? So start with that. Number 2, who might have the same concerns that you have, that you can team with? Because it's always great to have a helper, a collaborator that can help refine your thinking. Next, how does this goal align with our organization's strategy? Because that's going to tell you how to write the goal down and how to talk about that goal to others. 4, how might you estimate the financial cost of not changing or improving? And who might help you in calculating that cost? Now, you're a company, you've got financial people all over the place, and if you bring them interesting problems, they're likely to come up with pretty common sense solutions. So if you can get some help from a financial analyst to give a fairly good estimate of what this is costing. So for instance, in the case of efficiency, you could probably estimate how much time is being wasted and how long that takes a product to get to market or something of that nature. But if you can apply that cost both to lost productivity or market opportunity lost, what I found is that these burning platforms don't have to be precisely accurate if they're not presented as precisely accurate. If you just say, this is our best estimate of what this costs. And all they have to do is see graphically, remember, put it on a bar chart, that it's significant. What you want to do it matters. And then what evidence, so you have a solution, what evidence do you have your solution would work? So what other data can you provide? Did it work in another company? Did it work in another department? Is somebody already trying it? Is it working? So you want to have that. If you need to gather more evidence before you really pitch this, how might you do it? Who might you talk to? Number 7, now for a minute, assume you have the resources and the permission to make the change, and then create a visual step-by-step work plan. all you have to do is take a calendar and say, on week 1, we're going to do this. On week 2, we're going to do this. On week 3, we're going to do that. That's all it takes to create a work plan. Put it on a slide, and people think you're a genius. Number 8, show your work to potential allies and influencers and incorporate their ideas and ask for their support. So if you're going to present this to a gatekeeper and say, I really want to change this process, or you really need to invest in this new software program, you don't want to just do that on your own. You want to get allies and people who are respected in the organization to be open and supportive and incorporate their ideas, and they'll even be more supportive. And if when you're making the pitch, they can attend the pitch with you, that's even better. And then present your solution to the decision maker. It could be your boss, could be colleagues, with the expectation you'll get what you want. In other words, go in there with a really positive expectation. Because if you've done all this work, really, anybody who would turn you down after you've done all this work is got serious issues. There's a problem that is deeper than the problem you're trying to solve. So you should go in there with a real positive expectation. And if you go in there with a motive that this isn't to make your job necessarily easier, although maybe it will, the main thing is it's going to make the company a lot more effective, more agile, quicker, more profitable, grow faster, all those benefits to the entire company. And so going back to our garden, if we can convince the family that everybody will enjoy green grass and very few weeds and colorful flowers in the yard and so forth, and lift the spirits of everybody and give us a sense of family solidarity as we work on this together. I know I'm asking a lot. I know that's dreamy, but if people can really feel that we're doing this for all of us, not just for you, then they're much more likely to do it. Well, I just want to let you know that this is really a quick distillation of virtually all the best research from places like Harvard and Wharton on what brings about change in large and small businesses. And really, it's based on psychological research that what brings about change in any of us. So I hope you use it. I hope you take it to heart. You have the worksheets, so just refer to it when you need it. But don't be compliant. Don't just keep doing the status quo because it's too hard to change. I've just made you a change agent. So go out and try it and let us know what happens. If not right now, I know something will happen in the next few months where you really want to do this. I'll see you next time.